Doreen 𝗓𝗓𝗃𝗧 is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen 𝗓𝗓𝗃𝗧.
Dr. 𝗓𝗓𝗃𝗧.
Dr. Doreen 𝗓𝗓𝗃𝗧.
Dr. Doreen 𝗓𝗓𝗃𝗧 is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen, how do you help parents who are so demoralized that they aren't willing to try new things? I work with a young man who has significant challenges, but I believe that there is so much progress left to be uncovered. Mom is very tired and overwhelmed, and as a result, often asks us not to work on new targets. I don't want to push her, but I know she wants what's best for her child. What do you advise?
Yeah. So this is kind of, Shannon, I guess where I put on my psychologist hat for a minute as opposed to the behavior analyst hat, because I don't think that, I think we have to stop for a moment and just try to do better in terms of understanding what parents go through. And I'm glad that this question is from a therapist or a clinician, because we're so focused as clinicians on trying to push our kids forward that we forget what the parent's experience is. And clearly this is a parent who has not just, had lots of moments of things happening that cause the parent to be depressed or demoralized, but also there's just, they know that, or they feel at least that they don't have the support system in place to handle new things, right? I mean, we actually have a question that's similar to that, because I think we don't realize that when we give an instruction as a behavior analyst and say something like, work on this, and then we leave, we don't realize that the tantrums and all the not sleeping and all of the stuff that comes with work on this is we leave it for the parent to deal with. So, my advice is just to stop focusing on pushing the child forward for a moment.
Yes.
And just focus on what are the needs of the parent. Because, and I tell this to parents all the time, if the parent is burnt out, if the parent is exhausted, just doesn't want to do anymore, has given up hope, is depressed, is whatever is going on, the whole program is going to fail, because it's so important for the parent to feel okay first. And to be, feel like they have resources and tools and energy to deal with it, that sometimes it's important for us as clinicians just to leave the patient alone for a bit and focus on the support system, which is the parent. It's kind of like that thing you hear in airplanes, put your oxygen mask on before you help your child.
Yeah, which is unthinkable,
it's
by the way.
And
but
it's the only way, because if that parent, and I've unfortunately had a lot of situations where a parent passed away, and we had to kind of restructure and reorganize with the single remaining parent. And you just don't want to push parents to the point where they just can't function anymore. It's very, very important to step back and just hear the parent. Maybe try to give support and make things as pleasant as possible. I often say, like, if the family is on a vacation and you are with them, which occasionally happens, just take it easy during that week, because you really want the parents to refresh during that week as well. And do everything you can to help support that. Don't be so focused on what am I going to do next, how am I going to teach things next. Just put that on hold for a minute and be there for the family, and then suggest to the family that they do things that are going to be helpful to them. And those could be things like getting therapy for themselves, occasionally taking a night out. Like years ago, we used to have the luxury of being able to do, parents' night out, where we would have the therapists take care of the child so the parent could just go on a date or something. Just take care of themselves, right? And that is so important, for all parents, especially parents of children with disabilities.
Absolutely. I think back always to when we were starting therapy, And I was asked to make a list of what my biggest concerns were. What were the things that we wanted to work on? And I said, well, he's banging his head on the kitchen floor, and that's the biggest concern that I have. But he's also not sleeping until 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I had some stuff after that. But those were, and I wanted him to talk.
Yes,
that was big on the list too, right? And so, but the thing I was most like danger Will Robinson concerned about was him hitting his head on the kitchen floor, because I was afraid he was going to do permanent damage.
Sure.
But what I really remembered, it was like, ugh, was that they said, well, we're going to work on the sleep thing first.
Yeah.
Because, and I said, why? I want to work on the head banging thing first. And they said, because you haven't had sleep. It's not just him that hasn't had sleep.
Yeah.
And the intervention we want to do on the head banging, we're not going to be successful if you're not rested.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh my gosh, it was the first time that I realized what was happening with me was affecting him.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting that you said, if the parent isn't, if we're not dealing with the parent thing, then the program is going to fail. But the exact opposite is also true.
100%.
I was at a conference and I wasn't aware of how many studies have been done that show that if parents have support and, for instance, are meditating or doing something that helps them to deal with the feelings, that their program is much more likely to be successful, and that the child will actually accomplish more goals if the parent is rested and in a good place.
Absolutely, Shannon. And, as you know, I've started to interview a lot of parents of successful cases, right?
Yes.
Kids who had the most positive outcome and are doing well, thank God, right now.
Yeah.
And I came to the conclusion, and it's funny because what I'm learning from these parents, or I'm just like coming to the realization now, is that they prioritized, and you did this as well, their child over everything else.
Yeah.
And I think as parents of typically developing kids, we do that to some extent, but we also have other things going on, right? And it's not the only thing in our lives. But I think with parents of kids on the spectrum, for at least a period of time, that is the single thing in their mind. Yeah. And what happens is you put yourself and everything else that's important kind of on the back burner. And as a parent, you end up being behind the game instead of in front of the game. And what I mean by that is you're just exhausted every day and you're just hoping for things to be okay that day. Yeah. Whereas the parents who are well rested are ahead of the game and they are planning. Yeah. They're literally saying, today we will do the following things. And all of us go through these phases, so everybody's familiar with what I'm talking about, right? And if we could all get to a point where we're good at balancing things to an extent where we can take a little bit better care of ourselves, then we're able to do so much more.
But I want to give the disclaimer, I still don't have this figured out. Yeah. I still don't have this figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone really does. I think it's an ongoing, It's similar to, like, I came in today and I said to you, I'm just so overwhelmed with little things, right? And that's because I'm dealing with my elderly mom and my kids and, like, all the various issues that go on in life. But the truth is, I make sure that I get X number of hours of sleep. Yeah. And that's like something that I just do because I know I won't be functional if I don't. And I think it's an ongoing thing. It's not like you ever conquer this and it's done for good. It's like eating. Yeah. You never really conquer eating issues, Yes. It's a day-to-day. It's like, okay, well, today I was healthy. That's a good thing. Tomorrow I'll try again. Yes. And that's essentially how this is. I don't think anyone ever, like, maybe there are some people who really have their act together, but I know I never have. I know I'm always going day to day and kind of in the 6 to 7 out of 10 range every day. And that's good because, in the past when I used to do 50 other things, I was always in the 3 to 4 range,
It's so interesting because I've been having many conversations this week about, I always think that there's an arrival. Yeah, you're going to arrive. There isn't. Then I was saying the other day, I keep relearning that it's really about being on the journey. Yeah, absolutely. That there is no arrival, it's being on the journey. That's right. And that you have to stop and appreciate the journey. I gotta relearn this a million times.
I don't know. I mean, yes, I think you start to appreciate the journey when you accept the fact that it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you just start appreciating the 6 and 7 days.
Okay. I'm going to get on board with that.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.